Good morning and hello, everybody who is checking in. Shout yourselves out in comments section here. Let me get my pinned comments up here on IG, and we will get started in one moment. Let me just make sure it's in there. All right, as y'all coming in, shout yourselves out in the comment section, telling your name and location. We are live in multiple locations. We are live on Rumble. We are live on YouTube. We are live on X. We're live on Instagram. We're live on TikTok. And we are live on Facebook. We are live in 6 places. I am fresh out of TikTok jail. I feel like Tupac. I am fresh out of TikTok jail. They had me in TikTok jail for 3 days. I usually don't go live on the weekends. Today's Monday when I'm recording this, by the way, those of you watching this on replay. So we only actually missed one day over on TikTok. But I'm fresh out of TikTok jail and been free in all the other places. So we're going to get into what we need to get into here today. David checking in from Jersey. What part of Jersey you in, David? Shout out to Jersey. Shout out to Philadelphia, which is my hometown where I'm from. I'm based in Miami, Florida, but shout out to Jersey, shout out to Philadelphia. And TikTok says people in, but I don't know. I don't know if it is or not. But anyway, what we getting into here today are the 12 work on your game commandments. Those of you who are not familiar with me, I'll help you understand what that means, what it's about, and why we're talking about it here today. The 12 work on your game commandments are the 12. There's actually 13 of them. I called it 12, but I didn't realize it was 13, so I waited out. But the 12 principles that work on your game stands for, what 12 principles that we are about. And if you are aligned, if these principles resonate with you, then you are the type of person who we want to be working with. And this is the place that you want to be in. So I don't really need to give too much background on this, because if you don't know who I am, then the work on your game commandments doesn't really mean anything to you. So when I get into the points, then you'll understand it better. Let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete. I'm the author of 35 books. I've done 4 TEDx talks, and I created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do here is we take the tools to help athletes get to the top of the sports world, and we translate those tools over to the business and professional world to help professionals like you perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results, which usually that means making more money in your business if you're in business. Go to North Jersey. Shout out to North Jersey. So let's get right into this. The 12 work on your game commandments. Obviously, I got 12 points here. And as I told you, it's actually 13. So we got 13 points. I'm going to go through them relatively quickly. So I need y'all to listen quickly so I don't have to slow down for everybody to understand it. Everybody got that? Good. Point number 1, complete ownership. And all of these are of equal value, by the way. So no one is higher than any of the others. Complete ownership. What does complete ownership mean? Ownership means that the more things that you are willing to take ownership of, the more things you will have power over. So one of our principles over here, and every one of these is a principle, meaning they do not change, they are not flexible, and there are no exceptions. Okay, that's what it means when I say principles. So these commandments are also known as principles. And again, they do not change, they are inflexible, and there are no exceptions. Everybody got this? So when any of these principles turns you off, or you disagree with one of these principles, this is not the place for you. I am not the person for you. All right, so if you agree with these principles, though, then this is the right place and you're the perfect person. So complete ownership means the more things you are willing to take ownership / responsibility for, the more power you have over them. Anything that you want to have power over or influence on in life, you must take ownership of the situation, which means even if a situation is not your fault, you still make it your responsibility. So when I say ownership, that you can also swap in the word responsibility for this, because it means the same thing in this context. So if you have full ownership of something, that means you're responsible for it, and you're responsible, that means you have influence and power. If you don't want to have responsibility and ownership, that means you are ineligible to have influence and power. I'll give you an example. I wanted to play sports growing up. All right, I wanted to play basketball. I played a little bit of every sport, but eventually I wanted to play basketball. My parents are not athletes. My parents are not even that tall. I'm tall. I'm 6'4". My parents are not even 6 feet tall. Neither one of them. And they couldn't teach me basketball because they didn't know basketball. They never put any money into me playing. I never played AAU. They never hired a trainer or anything like that for me. And I never had any access to any specialized training facilities. I grew up in the city of Philadelphia, PA, and I did most of my practicing and developing my game on an outdoor basketball court in the summertime. And when it was raining, I just could not play basketball. And if it was cold, then I either braved the cold and went out there, or I didn't play. That was my situation. And I was able to finally make my high school team. I only played 1 year high school basketball because I didn't really get good until maybe a little bit like at the end of my senior year. And I barely played that 1 year I was on the team. Then I walked on to play college basketball at the Division III level. I made myself a little bit better. That's when I finally started getting access to an indoor gym and a weight room and all that stuff. And then I had to basically, is not walking on in the pros, but I basically walked on to play pro. I had to sell and market myself to get an opportunity to play basketball at the professional level. I'm saying all of that to say, folks, that me becoming an athlete was all me taking ownership of the situation and saying, I'm going to take responsibility for this. If I make it, it's going to be because of things that I do. And if I don't make it, it's going to be because of things that I didn't do. That's what ownership is about. Complete ownership is about, this is what I want to achieve. This is what I want to get to. This is my situation. I'm going to take ownership of it. And either it's going to happen or it's not going to happen, but it's all based on me. That's what ownership is about. And even if you have some talent, if you have resources, if you have access, if you have people helping you, you still have to take ownership of it. And I remember back in the days, those of you who are relatively new to me, or maybe you never even heard of me before, you're just listening to me for the first time. I used to put out all this basketball content on YouTube back in the day. What's going on? Sugar checking in on TikTok. I used to put out this basketball content for like 10 years. All I did was basketball content. So I've been online for basically 20 years. The first 10 years was mostly basketball, and the last 10 years been more like mindset, business, etc. And I used to get a lot of basketball players reaching out to me about, they wanted to make it. They wanted to go play high school, college, pro, etc. And I would often get parents. I would get a lot of parents reaching out to me, and I would get girlfriends reaching out to me and wives reaching out to me, mostly female. It'll be mother, parents, girlfriends, and wives. And they would be reaching out because they wanted to help their guy, whether it was their son, their boyfriend, or their husband. They wanted to help him get on playing basketball. And they would reach out to me and they would say, well, I read your blogs, or I saw your book, or I watched you on YouTube, and I see you talking about this basketball stuff and playing overseas and playing in college. And my guy, whoever the guy was, they want to play too. Can you give me some information on what I need to do? Because I'm trying to help him out to go and make it. And I would often have the same response to all of them whenever they reached out to me. I would say, I appreciate you, and I see what you're doing, trying to help your guy out, your son, your boyfriend, whatever, try to make it in basketball. At the same time, all due respect, miss, if your son, boyfriend, husband is serious about playing ball, I shouldn't be hearing from you. I should be hearing from them. If he's serious about playing, he should be sending me an email. He should be sending me a DM. He should be joining my program. He should be ordering the book instead of you doing it, because if you're doing it, that means you're taking more proactive steps to help him succeed than he is taking to help himself succeed. And that doesn't mean that you're wrong, miss, for trying to help him out. But at the same time, he's serious. He should be doing it. I have had family members of mine who were playing basketball, and they were trying to come up and play. None of them played at the pro level, but they all played at some level. And none of them ever reached out to me and said, yo, Dre, what are you doing? Like, how are you working out? How are you training? Tell me some things I could do to work on my own stuff. They didn't live in the same place as me, so we weren't geographically in the same area. But they never even said, like, can you give me some information? Can you give me some tips? Can you show me how I can work out and how I can get to the same thing? And I remember once I was talking to my mom, and my mom has she has several brothers. She was the only girl, but she has several brothers. So one of my uncles, they had sons who played basketball. My mom one time was talking to me, and she was like, well, one of your cousins, she says, and then one of your cousins, he's younger than me, he plays basketball and he's trying to get better, and he wants to go and do some of the things that you've done. You should reach out to him and talk to him. And I said, well, he knows who I am, doesn't he? It's not like they don't know me. Like, our family, we all know each other pretty well. We all grew up in the same city. We moved around, but everybody knows each other. I'm like, why he ain't reaching out to me? Like, he knows who I am. If he's serious, he should be reaching me. And it's the same thing I would tell the players, or the women reaching out on behalf of the players back in the day. Why are you reaching out instead of your son reaching out? Your son's 16. If he's serious about playing in college, he should be DMing me. Your husband, he's 25 and he want to take a shot at playing overseas. Why are you sending me an email then instead of him sending me an email? If you're serious, you should be doing it. So the point here, folks, is you got to take 100% ownership of your situation, because your ability to shape circumstances is also known as power. All right. Is there anybody listening to this who does not want power? Anybody listening to this who you don't want power? Call yourself out. You just don't want power at all. And when I say power, I'm not talking about over other people. I'm talking about power to shape your situation, your life. So many people, when they hear the word power, you're thinking about like everybody in the world knowing about you or being the president. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about your ability to influence and shape the circumstances in your own life. If you want power, you must take responsibility. And the more you take, the more ownership you take, the more power you have. And the fact of the matter is, many people are walking around in life right now completely powerless to shape your situation. And the reason is not because you lack resources, or you don't have money, or you don't know the right person, or because where your family's from, or any of that nonsense that people come up with. It's because you're simply not taking ownership. That's your problem. You are not taking ownership of your situation. What keeps many people from acquiring power in life is your unwillingness to take responsibility for your situation. And here's the key part. Even if it's not your fault, it is still your responsibility. That's the key. If you're willing to do that, then you can have power over damn near everything that happens in your life. You become, as they say, the master of your fate. You become the master of your fate when you decide to take ownership over everything. Moving on to point number 2. We're talking about the 12 work on your game commandments. These are the 12 principles that our whole brand and business is built upon. And again, these do not change. They are inflexible and there are no exceptions. Point number 2, accurate formulas. What is an accurate formula? An accurate formula means you must always be seeking what are the steps that need to be taken in the right way and in the right order to achieve the outcome I'm looking to achieve. Now, accurate formulas being a principle means anytime that you're doing things and you feel like you're doing all the right things and in the right way, but you're still not getting the outcome, then it must mean that your formula is off. Or it means you are incorrect in saying that you're doing all the right things. It's one or the other. There are no exceptions. There's no gray area to this. This is a black and white. And we tend to try to move things to the black and white over here in our world. It's just the way that we work. And this is based on the way that I think. And this is the way that I communicate as well. There is a big difference between being right and being accurate. Let me say it again. There's a big difference between being right and being accurate. Unfortunately, many human beings tend to default to trying to be right rather than trying to be accurate. What does that mean? Being right means you proving your point and getting other people to agree with it, usually in the form of an opinion or a perspective. And that's fine to have an opinion and perspective. We all got a bunch of them, right? But being accurate is about what actually helps us achieve the goal. Those are two different things. Because being right might be, I have an argument that, hey, I should get the ball a whole lot on this basketball team because I want to score more points. And I will feel like I'm more involved in the game if I'm getting the ball more often. And I can make a case and make an argument for why I should get the ball. And you may agree with me. That means that I'm right. I prove myself right. But accuracy is about what's actually going to help us win the championship. And what helps us win the championship is we give that other guy the ball because he's a better player. He's a better scorer. He scores more points. And if he gets the ball more than I get the ball, we'll probably win more games. So what's more important, being right or being accurate? And unfortunately, too many human beings focus on trying to be right rather than trying to be accurate. And the reason people do this is because they're not even aware of the distinction between these two things. But over here, you're going to be aware of it. Okay. A lot of people focus on proving yourself correct and getting your opinion and views to prevail over the opinions and views of others, which is fine. However, the problem with this is when you're operating by inaccurate formulas, then you're not going to get the outcome that you want. Accuracy, folks, is about what gets us to the outcome. And important point about this, if you don't know what the outcome is, then we can't be accurate. It's impossible to be accurate if you don't know what you're trying to achieve. Everybody got that? You can't be accurate if you don't know what you're trying to achieve. What is the goal? Anytime I'm working with someone and they tell me what their problem is or what their challenge is, the first thing I ask them after they tell me that, I say, what's the goal? What are you actually looking to achieve? Because I can't give you advice if I don't know what you're trying to do. Because if I look at your situation and I think you're trying to do this, but you're actually trying to do that, then my advice is not going to be accurate because I'm giving you advice to achieve something that is not even what you're trying to do. So when I know what you're trying to do, now we can figure out what's accurate because accuracy is always based on outcomes, folks. Everybody got this? Accuracy is always based on outcomes. It is not based on opinions. Accuracy is based on outcomes, not opinions. So when you know what you're trying to achieve, then every decision you make needs to be based on achieving that outcome. So, for example, right now, as I'm recording this, there's a presidential election campaign, going on for an election coming up in a couple of months. Every decision that those campaigns make should not be based on the opinions or the whims or the perspectives of the people making the decision. It should be based on what's going to help us win the election. That's how decisions need to be made. Every decision, folks, needs to be made based on how do I achieve the desired outcome. That's how you become accurate. You cannot be accurate without a clear goal. And if everyone on your team is not clear as to what the goal is, that's how discrepancies can happen because one person may say, well, I have this opinion. Another person says I have that opinion. The problem is y'all are unclear on what you're actually trying to achieve, which is why there's this discrepancy because the goal is not clear. The goal needs to be crystal clear. And any of you who's a leader, you need to be very, very clear about what the goal is. When people are clear on the goal, then it's much easier to make decisions. And this is how you can be more black and white in making your choices and moving yourself forward. Moving on to point number 3. We are talking here today about the 12 work on your game commandments. Again, these are the principles of what our entire brand and business is built on. There are no exceptions. These do not bend. There is no gray area, and these are unchangeable. Point number 3, self-honesty. Self-honesty. That means keeping it real with yourself about who you are, what you're doing, what's working and what's not working. So you notice how all these pieces actually work together. I'll give you an example. A person had sent me a message once, and I asked them, what's the biggest challenge that you're dealing with right now? And they said, well, my biggest challenge is getting up early to whatever they want to do, getting up more early and doing their stuff. And actually they said the biggest challenge was waking up, is what they said. Waking up early is their challenge. And I said, okay, well, what have you tried to do to help it? They said, well, I tried everything. I tried putting my alarm. I set the alarm on my phone, and I put my phone on the other side of the room, so I have to get up out of bed in order to turn it off. I tried putting it in the other room. They told me all these things that they tried doing. And I said, well, what happens when you try that? And they said, well, what I would do is wake up when the alarm goes off, walk to the other side of the room, get the phone, turn off the alarm, and then get right back into bed and go to sleep. LOL. And they said the challenge was waking up. I said, well, your challenge is not waking up. Your challenge is actually staying up. The problem is, and going deeper than that, the problem is not waking up, because if this person was sending me a message, well, clearly you've been waking up every day for like the last 20, 30 years, however old this person was. So you don't have a problem waking up. All right. Everybody wakes up every day. Any of you who's listening to me right now, you've woken up like thousands of times. So you don't have a problem waking up. The problem is a lack of discipline and lack of self-accountability. And you see what happens with folks, and this is the reason why we talked about accuracy in the previous point, is that a lot of times when people are not getting the outcome that they want, they inaccurately blame the situation on something other than what the actual problem is. Any of you familiar with the concept of time management? You ever heard people talk about that, time management? All right, there's no such thing as time management. All right, you can't manage time. All right, while I'm talking right now, the seconds are ticking off at the exact same pace over and over and over again. No matter what I do, no matter what I say, I can't manage that. I can't change it. So what are you managing? No such thing as time management, folks. When you say time management, what you actually mean is self-management and personal discipline, because that's actually what you need. If you want to get better at using your time more productively, which is what most people mean when they say time management, then you need to start managing yourself, and you need to get some damn discipline. That's your problem. It's not time management. All right, because time management makes it seem like, oh, if I do better at managing the clock, then my life will get better. No, the clock doesn't need to be managed. The clock knows exactly what it's doing. It's been doing the same thing your whole life. You are the variable, not the time, not the clock. I got a timer going right now. It's going 1 second at a time, no matter what I say, no matter what I do. Whether I use it productively or I use it unproductively, it goes at the exact same pace the entire time. Time management is about managing yourself. And see, a lot of people get this thing. They say something like, well, I can't wake up early. All right. None of you has a problem waking up early. Any of you ever had an early flight that was at like 6 in the morning? All right. Did you make it on the plane? Okay. What time do you have to wake up? Okay. So none of you has a problem waking up early. Okay. So there, we just solved that problem. All right. None of you has a problem waking up early. Your problem is you don't have the discipline to make yourself do it the same way you would do it if you had to catch a flight. That's your problem. And when people mischaracterize the issue as something other than what it actually is, this is what we call an inaccurate formula. This is what I was just talking about in the previous point. And this is the reason why a lot of people come up short. It's not because you're bad or wrong or dumb or incapable. It's simply because you are misdiagnosing your own problems. And the biggest thing most people do is they misdiagnose their problems as being something outside of themselves, i.e. time management, as if, oh, if I do better at managing time, things will change. No, it's self-management. And this is why we bring back the self. Everybody got what I'm saying here? All right, moving on to point number 4. And I'll take questions and comments at the end. If you have any, I'll scroll through the comments and see them. Moving on to point number 4. We're talking about the 12 work on your game commandments. These are the principles of work on your game. They are unbending. They are unchanging. They are inflexible. These are principles. They are etched in stone. Okay. And all of you, if you don't have any principles, you need to get some. Point number 4, the same things, the same way every time. What does this mean? This is about consistency. It's about discipline. It's about having a process. Anything that you want to do successfully, you want to build a reputation for doing it successfully, guess what? You need to do the same things the same way every time. I just gave you an example. All right. Any of you ever caught a flight before ever in your life? All right. Notice that those airlines, Delta Airlines, US Airways, Southwest, Spirit, you shouldn't be flying Spirit, but anyway, American Airlines, any of these airlines, they do the same things the same way every time, over and over and over and over and over again. There's a process. Now, here's where you can insert a joke. Yeah, they're always late and they miss flights and they lost my bags. And yeah, I get it. But y'all get the general point of what I'm saying, that they are consistent in their operations. They're consistent in what they do. And the reason that we know who they are is because of their consistency of execution. Period. End of story. And you want to be that same way in what you do. You want to be consistent in your delivery so that people start to know you for the thing that you do. And when your name comes up, they immediately associate it with the stuff you do consistently. And if the stuff that you do gets brought up, somebody mentions your name. So if I mention tennis, you might say Serena Williams because of her consistency in doing that. If I mention golf, you may say Tiger Woods. Now, it's also because they're famous and because they're the best at what they do. But at the same time, on a micro level, a smaller level, you can build a reputation the exact same way in your space. You don't have to be world famous. You can be famous in your office for what you consistently do. You can be famous in your industry for how you consistently show up and do what you do. You can be famous just to your fans. You don't have to have a million fans. You can have 1,000 fans. You can be consistent just to those 1,000 fans about how you show up and how you deliver, and that they know they're going to get ABC every time they see your name. That matters. When people know you for something and they come to like whatever it is, and they come to trust that you're going to deliver it, guess what? They'll pay for it. All right. This is why the same things the same way every time matters. All right. Think about the places where you shop at. You know exactly what you're going to get. When you go to the grocery store, you know exactly what you want to get. You know you want to get some produce. You know you want to get some fruits and vegetables. You want to get some snacks. You want to get some meat. You want to get some prepared foods. And if you show up and they didn't have it, you'd be really disturbed, because you come to have the expectation that they're going to deliver at a certain level. You want to become the type of person whom other people start to have an expectation of a certain level of delivery, and you deliver on it every single time. And if you don't deliver, that's an exception. That's not the rule. So all of us mess up sometimes because we're human. Human beings mess up. But on a general level, people should come to expect a certain level of delivery and performance from you, and you should be doing it over and over again. Now, how does this happen? Because what I'm describing here is consistency. Consistency is a byproduct of discipline. Discipline is a byproduct of structure. And this is why you got to have a structure in place. So when I say process and structure, I'm using them interchangeably in this context. Do you have a process? Let me take a sip of water while you think about that question. For whatever it is that you do on a professional level. Okay, so I'm talking to the professionals here. Those of you who I'm talking about the thing that you get paid to do. Do you have a process for how you do it? And I'm specifically referring to the entrepreneurs here, because when you work at a job, usually the job has a process for you. They tell you what to do. You just do it. I worked at plenty of jobs. Most jobs, they give you the process. So if you work at McDonald's, they don't say, hey, just figure out how to make a burger. They tell you how to make it. All right, this goes here, and this, and this, and this. They have a process. And this is the reason why those companies are those companies. And speaking of that, let's go to that. McDonald's is McDonald's not because they have the best burgers, but because they have a process. McDonald's has the best process in the world when it comes to fast food delivery. When I say delivery, I don't mean to your house. Delivery meaning just giving you what you ask for. You go in there, order a burger and fries. They had the best process in the world. They don't have the best food in the world. They got the best process in the world. And that's why they're McDonald's. Amazon has a great process for delivering packages. Right. So if you got Amazon Prime and you order a package and it isn't at your house within 2 days, you're calling Amazon and texting with their chat bots and demanding that something be fixed. Why? Because you have built an expectation that when you order that product, it's going to be there within 2 days. That's same things, same way every time. How many packages do you think Amazon delivers a day? Millions. Most of them get delivered where they're supposed to, when they're supposed to, the right way, every single time, over and over and over again. And you ever ordered a package from Amazon and it was the wrong item in the package? Notice how that very rarely happens? Because they have a process. That's what process looks, sounds, and feels like. You want to be that for what you do. So again, my question was, do you have a process? Especially you entrepreneurs or those of you building a business on the side, do you have a process for how you do what you do? And is your process producing the results that you want? If it's not, you should change the process or change maybe who you're doing it for. Do you have a strategy, a plan of action for how you execute? What do you do the same things the same way every time? If you're running a business or you plan to, you must have a process. You cannot just go off of talent. You can't go off of good timing. You can't just go off of luck. Eventually that stuff runs out. All right. Eventually you need a process that will be so consistent that the outcomes are happening over and over and over again with very little variance between executions. That is the definition of consistency. Over and over again with very little variance between executions. Means the same things the same way every time. Moving on to point number 5. We're talking here today about the 12 work on your game commandments. These are the principles that work on your game. That is my company, my business, what we stand on. These are unchangeable. They are etched in stone, and there is no gray area to any of these. Point number 5, action bias. What is an action bias? An action bias means you are more leans towards actually doing something than doing nothing. Simple as that. Another challenge that I see with a lot of people, and all these principles are based on challenges that I see and hear from people telling me about, whether they know it or not, is that many people just spend too much time in analysis paralysis, or paralysis by analysis, however you want to call it, just thinking about what to do instead of actually doing something. Most people are too slow to action. Many of you who are listening to this, I may be talking about some of you, you're just too damn slow. It doesn't take too long to do things. You take too long to make a decision. You take too long to identify a problem. You take too long to execute on your decision. And you take too long to just take action. Even when you start taking action, you're just too slow. People are just too slow. And the problem with being too slow, folks, is that every one of us is on the clock. I mentioned time earlier. You know what on the clock means? It means that your time is running out. Every single day, every one of us, our time is running out. Every one of us has a date at which everything is, your physical body is going to stop working. It's also known as death. All right, that's coming to every single person listening to this right now. So every time you operate slow, every time you are indecisive, every time you hesitate to execute, every time you take too long to identify, address, and do something about a problem, you are defying the logical understanding that eventually you will run out of time. So you're taking your time as if you have unlimited time. Nobody has unlimited time. So the action bias principle is about you acting as if you understand that your time is limited. Because everybody's time is limited. It's about you acting as if you understand your time is limited. Many people act like your time is unlimited, but it's not unlimited. And we all understand this when you actually think about it. The challenge is, us human beings, we tend to distract ourselves with a lot of nonsense over the course of a day so that we don't have to think about this reality. But I'm bringing it to your face right now so you can think about it more. Okay. And too many people spend way too much time thinking about it. How many of you got something in your life that you're thinking about, but you're not actually doing anything? I bet a bunch of you have something like that that fits that description. You're thinking about it. All right. Thought is instantaneous, ladies and gentlemen. Let me prove to you how fast thought is. All right. Watch this. I want you to picture an elephant in your mind right now. You see how fast that happened? Picture a basketball. See how fast that happened? Picture the beach. All right, see how fast you made that thought? All right, so whenever someone says they're thinking about something, oftentimes it's nonsense. Now, sometimes you do need to take a little bit of time. Maybe you need to sleep on a decision. Maybe it's a bigger decision, and you need to take a little bit of time to consider the ramifications of what you may do. I grant you that, but thinking about it usually doesn't take more than about 24 hours at the most. I don't need more than a day to think about what I want to do. And usually when someone says they're thinking about it, they've already made a decision, but they're just trying to put off sharing the decision or taking action on the decision. So they just say, well, I'm thinking about it, because they just want to get away from the decision-making process. But understand something. Highly successful people are very decisive people. Successful people are decisive. People who are not successful tend to be very indecisive. So the question is, which one are you? Are you decisive or indecisive? Do you make decisions and take actions on them, or do you keep adding time to a situation? The problem, folks, with adding time to a situation is eventually you run out of time to add. Or you can't just keep adding time to a situation. Eventually you just run out of, you ain't got any more. Or you're in a time deficit. Like the United States government, for example, we're in a deficit. You know how much money the United States is in debt? All right, we can't keep adding money to that, right? Because eventually people are just going to stop respecting it. All right, so it's the same thing with you. And the difference with you is that, unlike with the government, you actually literally run out of time and the game literally ends. So it's different. Number 6. So that's action bias. Number 6, we are talking about the work on your game commandments. These are the principles that work on your game is about and what we stand on. When I say principles, I want to be clear again that these are etched in stone. They are inflexible. There is no gray area, and these are not changing ever. Everybody got it? Point number 6, being overdoing. What does this mean? I'll tell you what it means. Everybody listening to this understands the concept of goal setting, right? Most of you have goals. Hopefully you have goals, and hopefully you have your goals written down, committed to paper. If you have goals that are not written down, I suggest you write them down today. And most people understand, most of you reasonable people understand, you can't get something for nothing. In order to achieve any outcome in life, you got to do something. The challenge is most people spend their lives just in this loop, just between those two things. Excuse me, this is what I want. Let me go do something. Did I get it? No. Okay, let me do something else. Did I get it? No. Let me do something else. Let me do a little bit more. Let me do it harder. Let me do it better. Let me do it faster. Let me do it earlier. Let me do it later. Let me go change what I'm doing. And most people spend their entire lives in this cycle of doing stuff trying to achieve an outcome, doing stuff, trying to achieve an outcome. And this is why, especially in Western society, we espouse this whole concept of hard work. All right, work, work, work. And anytime you're not getting the goals that you want to achieve, you need to work harder. All right, you haven't achieved the same goal that he did. It's obvious that he's working harder than you. You don't have the same goals that she got. It's clearly that she has just outworked you. All right, and this is what people tell themselves and tell each other all the time. You go on YouTube and look up motivational videos. Most of them are about pushing you and motivating you to do what? Work harder, right? Work longer, work faster, work earlier. It's all about work, work, work. Now, let me be clear. I don't have a problem with the concept of hard work. I mean, my brand is literally called Work on Your Game. So I'm not trashing hard work, and I work hard myself. At the same time, there's another question that most people never ask themselves that put them into this doom loop of hard work, trying to get the outcome, and just working literally themselves to death. People literally work themselves to death trying to achieve outcomes because you are operating by an inaccurate formula. Actually, you see how all these pieces start to work together? All right, the inaccurate formula is you haven't asked yourself another key question. Here's the key question. All right, write this one down. Who do I need to be? That's the question you got to ask yourself. Who do I need to be? What does that mean? Who do I need to be? It means, and I wrote a whole book about it, is this book right here called The Mirror of Motivation. This book is all about asking yourself and answering the question, who do I need to be? You can get this book for free by going to mirrorofmotivation.com. And what who do I need to be is about is asking yourself, what kind of energy do I have to have? What kind of aura? What kind of mindset? How do I need to show up every day? What does my internal posture need to be? What does my external posture need to be? It's all about how you are showing up, how you are seeing yourself in your mind's eye, and the energy that you bring to life. Then when you get yourself in that right space, then you start doing stuff. And that's when you start getting the outcomes that you want. The challenge for many people is not that your goals is anything wrong with your goals. You can set any goal you want. It's not anything wrong with your effort or work for the most part. There's some lazy people out there, but many of you are hard workers that are actually dedicated and doing what you're supposed to do. Problem is you're just using a formula that doesn't work. You're using the wrong formula. There's nothing wrong with you. You just had the wrong formula. It's like if you're trying to get from Miami to Los Angeles, well, you could walk, you could take a bicycle, you could drive, or you could get in the plane. Which one's going to get you there faster? All right, obviously the plane. Some of you are trying to ride a bike from Miami to LA and then wondering why it's not working. There's nothing wrong with your desire. What's wrong is the process. And when you change the process, then you start getting the outcome that you want. And this is why being matters so much. Who do I need to be? If you just write that question down and you actually go to work answering the question, this will change a whole lot of things for you. Many people don't even know how to answer that question. And this is the reason why many people end up coming up short. But again, in our program, in our university, I coach people on how to actually do this and how do we go to work on it. And many people, again, going straight into the actions, if you go straight to the actions, you're always going to end up stuck and lost and feeling confused about what you're doing. Moving on to number 7. We're in the second half now. So we're talking about the 12 work on your game commandments. These are the principles of work on your game, the unflexible, unbending, and unchanging. Number 7, the open market commandment. The open market commandment, this is especially important for those of you who are entrepreneurs, those of you who are in the business world, running your own ventures. And the commandment says you're only as good as who or what you defeat in order to get or acquire what you have. You're only as good as what you have come up against in the open market. In other words, if you live a sheltered life where you did not have to go out into open space and make it happen out of nowhere, out of getting it out the mud, kind of as we sometimes say colloquially, then you haven't really proven anything. You're only as good as who you beat or what you beat. And I come from the sports world, so I want you all to understand this. You can't call yourself the best player if you didn't go to where all the best players are and beat all of them. All right, you got to be the best player. You got to go to where it's at and you got to prove it. That's how it works. If you say you're the guy, you're the girl, you got to go to where it's happening and you got to prove it against everybody who's out there. That's what the open market commandment says. Another thing is your value. Because I ask a lot of people, I've been talking to a lot of people over the last 20 years online. People want to talk about their value and their worth. I know my worth. You ever hear people say that phrase? I know my worth. Okay. Your worth is whatever the open market is willing to give you. That's your actual worth. Your worth is not what you say. Your worth is not what you write down on your vision board. Your worth is not what you typed into your phone. Your worth is whatever you can go out onto the open market, command, and get. So, for example, if I say I'm worth, I'll say I was trying to get a job in any space, and I say I'm worth $350,000 a year, but then I go out into the open market with that expectation, and the best offer I get is $250,000 a year, and I accept it, then my worth is not 350,000. My worth is 250,000 because that's what I accepted. That's the open market commandment. Your worth is whatever you are willing to accept. Now, if I don't accept it and I keep hunting and I finally get someone to give me 350K, okay, that's what I'm worth. Then I proved it. But in the open market, you got to go out there and get it. This is how life works. And again, I'm an entrepreneur. All right. Entrepreneurs, we are not animals in the zoo. We're animals in the jungle. There's two different things. All right. A lion living in the zoo has a completely different reality than a lion living in the jungle. Because in the zoo, they come out and they throw you some meat twice a day. All you got to do is lay around and sleep for 20 hours a day. They throw you some meat. You go eat. You're good. You don't have to do anything. A lion in the jungle has to get up and kill something in order to eat. And if they don't kill anything, they don't eat. And if you don't kill anything for long enough, you die. All right. That's the world that I come from. That's the open market commandment. Everybody got that? Everybody clear on that? So if you want to call yourself a champion in life, you got to be in a situation where it looks like you might lose and you win. That's the champion. Somebody had just asked me this. I was on somebody's podcast just last week, and they asked me a question. They asked me a question like that, and I gave them that answer. What makes you a champion is being in a situation where it looks like you're losing or you're about to lose, and you win anyway. That's what makes you a champion. If you only been in situations that are set up for you to win, and then you won, that's cool, but you didn't really prove anything because you haven't been in the open market. If you go into the open market and you play long enough, you will eventually find yourself in a space where it looks like you're going to lose. All right, that's how it works. And if you can't turn one of those losses into a win, you're not a champion yet. You got to be tested. That's the open market commandment. You got to go to where you're being tested. You got to go to where it's at. In the sports world, it's naturally built into it because if you're really good, you consider yourself good in sports, eventually you're going to keep moving up. And every level you move up to, you're going to face what? People who are a little bit better. You play in middle school, go to high school, the players are a little bit better. Go to college, they're better. Go to the pros, they're better. And the higher levels you go, it's just natural selection. The best players from the previous level are the ones who made it to this level. Can you keep proving it? And at the point that you stop proving it, that's your level. That's it. That's as far as it goes. So in the entrepreneurship world, you got to be willing to build it. You got to get it. When I first got into entrepreneurship, or let's say when I got into it full time, after I stopped playing basketball in 2015, nobody knew me as a business person. The only people who knew me were people watching me online from basketball stuff. I had proven absolutely nothing as an entrepreneur. I mean, I had sold some products. I technically was an entrepreneur, but I hadn't proven anything in the space like where I'm in now, as far as speaking, writing books, thought leadership, any of that stuff, consulting. I hadn't done any of that stuff. And I spent a good year plus making cold calls, sending a bunch of cold emails, trying to land speaking gigs and stuff like that. And I did a whole bunch of speaking gigs where I got paid no money. And I would travel to these events where I paid my own money. I paid for the flights, I paid for the hotels, I paid for my own food, and didn't get paid to speak just so I could prove that I was good enough. And then what happened on the back end, I started getting those same people that I went and spoke at for free, calling me back and saying, hey, can you come speak and we'll pay you this time. That's how the open market works. If you're actually good, you'll make an investment in yourself to go into the open market and show that you have game. And then that proof now gets you paid on the back end. But you got to be willing to put the time in and you got to prove it. Again, you got to prove it. The open market is you must prove it. Anything that you say you are and you say that you're about and you say that you're worth, all right, that's cool. I heard you. I respect that you believe that. Now you got to go out there and prove it. That's how the game works. That's the open market commandment. And again, if you're going to do something like playing sports, you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be in any highly competitive space, you got to prove it, period. Point number 8. We're talking today about the 12 work on your game commandments. This is all the principles of work on your game is about. Number 8, the preparation commandment. This one is actually probably the simplest one for any of you to understand, at least so far. What's the preparation commandment? It means that the hallmark of a professional is preparation. And work on your game is for professionals, by the way. And a professional is defined as a person who does something that's their main paid occupation. The hallmark of a professional is preparation. If you're dealing with someone who is a pro, they are always ready, prepared, ahead of the situation. They do not wait till the situation occurs to get ready. They are ready before the situation occurs, and that's why they are a professional. They know what's coming, and they're ready for it. That's a pro. A professional athlete, what does a professional athlete do aside from playing in the games? They go to training and they go to practice, right? And you ever been to a conference and you saw someone get on the stage and give a good speech? What did they do before they got on the stage to give the speech? Probably days, weeks before they got on the stage. What did they do? They prepared. They practiced what they were going to say before they got on the stage. Y'all saw the conventions, like the conventions for the Democrats and the Republicans. Those people who got on the stage and spoke, I guarantee you they practiced giving those lines before they got on the stage. They didn't just get on the stage and just start talking. Now, maybe Trump does that, but everybody else, they pretty much prepare ahead of time before they got on the stage. Professionals always prepare ahead of time. Professional actors and actresses, what do? They read their scripts before they get on the set. Professional athletes have practices and training before they get into the games. Professional anything is always prepared before the thing comes. A professional mechanic trains and learns all the stuff that they need to do. Let's say fixing a car, they train and go to classes and school to learn how to fix the car. So when you bring in a car in real life to fix, they know exactly how to fix it. They know exactly what needs to be done. Any one of you who wants to call yourself a professional at what you do, you need to be showing up prepared and ready for the situation before it occurs. Even if you don't know what the situation is, you're ready for so many different situations. Whichever one occurs, you already know how to deal with it. That's what a professional is. If you're a serious professional. I'll give you an example of somebody fumbling the ball on this. I remember a couple of years ago, this is several years. This is like 2009. I remember I had went to go play in this rec league basketball game here in Miami. And I was driving home. It was like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And it was a cop car in front of me. And there was just a 2-lane road. And it was one lane going this way, one lane going that way. And there's 2 cop cars. One was going the opposite direction. They stopped and they were talking to each other. And I waited for a minute, but then they kept talking. Like they didn't see my car behind. So I beat my horn at the cop. It was a bad idea. So the cop moved up. They looked at me. Then they moved up. Then he pulled me over. And this is like, I haven't been pulled over in a long time. It's been like over a decade since I've been pulled over. But they pulled me over. And the cop, basically, he tried to argue with me like, well, we're conducting business. I'm like, so you're in the middle of the street. So anyway, I wouldn't have done this now, but that's what I did then. So then he saw like somebody had, this is an old car that I had. Somebody had cut the license plate to steal the registration tag. So they were looking at that and they were trying to get me on something. They were trying to write a ticket for me because they were mad that I had called them out for blocking traffic. So I'm sitting there in the car and the cops had me detained there. I'm sitting in the car and these dudes, I remember watching in the rearview mirror, they pulled out like this big textbook. Like these 2 cops, these 2 bumbling Three Stooges cops, they pulled out this big textbook and they're looking through the book and trying to figure out what law or rule am I violating by having my license plate cut so they could write the ticket. They couldn't even figure out what the problem was that I was doing. And they were looking through the textbook trying to figure it out. All right, this is an example of a lack of professionalism. Like they didn't even know their own jobs. But they were trying to prove a point. They were trying to kind of get revenge on me for beeping my horn at them. Because they were blocking the street. A true professional is always prepared ahead of time. Any of you, whatever you do for a living, if you call yourself a professional, you're ready ahead of time. When you were in school, any of you went to school and you graduated, what did you do before the test, before the exam? You prepared, right? That's called studying, right? And that's how you were able to pass the test. So even if you hated school, you know the deal, right? If I want to graduate, I want to pass the class, I got to know enough of this test that I can at least get a passing grade. Now, some things may come to you on the spot when it's happening, but for the most part, a professional is so prepared that even when, for example, I remember playing ball, I would get a lot of players who would come to me, especially when it came to like dribbling the basketball. They would say, well, I want to do dribbling moves like Kyrie Irving or like Derrick Rose or do moves like Kobe Bryant. I would get players asking about that all the time. And they would ask, well, how can I practice to play the way that those guys do? And I would explain to them the same thing I'll tell you all. Or if you watch boxing, you see Floyd Mayweather, for example. Those guys don't go into their practice literally practicing the exact things that you see in the game. What they do is they practice so many different angles, so many different possibilities, so many different skills that when they get into the live situation, they are able to improvise. And this is the same thing that a good comedian, for example, has this ability. Any of you ever seen a comedy show? The comedians telling jokes and they have their script of things that they're going to say and the jokes they want to tell. But if someone in the crowd says something or someone tries to heckle them or they just see something funny happen, the comedian can go off script, make jokes about what just happened on the spot, and then go right back to their process. Why is that? Because they're prepared ahead of time. They're so prepared that they can improvise on the spot and then go right back to their script. A good professional always has that ability. And if you consider yourself a professional, you should be able to do that. If you can't do that, you're not yet a true professional. You need to continue to work on your game and continue to prepare. Moving on to point number 9. We're talking here today about the 12 work on your game commandments. These are the 12 principles that work on your game is built on, and they do not change. Number 9 is the third day commandment. What is the third day? Now, the third day is, if you're watching this on video, all of you are, that's that book right there. If you're on TikTok, that red book, third day. If you're on Instagram, is right here. If you're on Rumble, YouTube is right here. The third day is all about how you show up and give your best effort when you least feel like it. on days when things are not working, you don't feel good, you didn't get a lot of sleep last night, your kid kept you up all night, there was a dog next door barking, your stomach hurts, you got a headache, it's raining, it's snowing, it's hot, it's cold, and you really don't feel like doing your job that day. How do you show up? What do you do that day? What do you do that day? That's what the third day is. The third day is that day when you really, really, really do not feel like doing your job, but you still had to do your job. A true professional shows up and gives a great effort on that day to the point that no one who is observing even realizes how you were feeling that day because your performance is consistent. Remember, I told you the same things the same way every time in one of my earlier points. See, this is why all these pieces, all these principles fit together. A true professional is not slowed down by the third day. They actually give a great effort on the third day. You want to see an example of the third day? Those of you who are sports fans, remember Michael Jordan when they had what they call the flu game? It was Game 5, 1997 NBA Finals. When Michael Jordan was, whether it was he had the flu or he got poisoned or he was sick, whatever it was, we know he was sick, right? And he had a great game. Now, he was the best player on the court that night, even though he was probably in the worst physical shape of anybody on the court. He still had the best game of everybody. That's an example of showing up on the third day. And again, you ain't got to be Michael Jordan. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to be an athlete. How many of you have had days like that? Everybody's had days like that where you really don't feel like it. You didn't get enough sleep. Your stomach hurts. Again, you're tired. Things are not going well at the office. You got problems back at home, but you still have to do your job. That's the third day. What do you do on that day? How do you show up? If you're a true professional, you show up the same way that day as you would every other day. Your performance is consistent, even though you don't feel like performing at all. And no one should be able to tell that you have problems outside of work by the way that you show up at work. Your performance and your energy should not be affected by this. And again, I wrote a whole book about the third day. It's right there. You can get it by going to thirddaybook.com. Thirddaybook.com. It's probably in the details on my bio on one of these over here. If you're on IG, it's in my bio. If you're on TikTok, just go to Third Day, just spell it out, thirddaybook.com. You can get a copy of that book. So how do you show up and give your best effort again when you don't even feel like giving an effort? Moving on to point number 10. We're talking 12 work on your game commandments. Just a couple of them left here. Number 10 is the mental toughness commandment. Mental toughness commandment. Mental toughness is all about how you continue to show up and giving your effort, being disciplined, being consistent, even when everything's not working. How many of you have been in a space, maybe some of you are in this space right now, where you feel like all the stuff that you're doing, all the effort you're giving, everything that you're trying, you're still not getting the results, and it's looking like, I don't know what the hell the problem is. You feel like quitting. Things are just not working the way that you want them to work. Everyone has been in this space. Maybe some of you are in this space right now. Mental toughness is about continuing to show up and deliver and continuing to follow your own process, even though you're not getting the results yet. That's mental toughness. And what I've found in my experience is many people lack mental toughness, just humans in general. It's no demographic that this is not endemic to any one demographic. Young, old, male, female, people who work at jobs, students, athletes, entrepreneurs, black, white, Democrat, Republican, people just lack mental toughness. Many people just have no mental toughness. And what happens when people don't have mental toughness is they quit. Most people just quit. Too many people they are too easy to quit, too quick to quit on things that are not working for them. Whereas successful people know how to stay in the game. Successful people have resilience, grit, persistence, mental toughness, stick-to-itiveness. That's what this 10th commandment is all about. How do you continue to show up and give a great effort, even when you don't really feel like giving an effort, even when your efforts have not been working, even when you have no reasons to feel good about your situation, you keep showing up and you keep plugging away. And often the results are on the other side of that willingness to keep showing up. This commandment, again, is about continuing to show up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. Point number 11, we are talking to 12 work on your game commandments. The principles of work on your game is about. It's actually 13 of these, so we got 3 left. Number 11, the selling yourself commandment. This one is connected to the open market commandment. Selling yourself commandment is about, if no one is knocking on your door, you got to go knock on some doors. If no one is ringing your phone, you got to ring some phones. In other words, if you're not getting the opportunities that you want, it is your job to go out there and start creating opportunities for yourself. If you want to sell more of your products, but you can't run any advertisements right now because Facebook deleted your ad account, or you don't have any money to run ads. Well, what's stopping you from just putting quality content on social media all day, every day? What's stopping you from doing that? Nothing. Or what is stopping you from doing a live stream every day? Like I'm doing a live stream right now. What's stopping you from doing that? It doesn't cost any money to do this. What's stopping you from doing these things? If no one is calling your phone, what's stopping you from getting a bunch of people's phone numbers, which are easy to find online if you're trying to do business, and just calling in? All right, even if they hang up on you, even if they don't answer, even if they just send you the voicemail and they never call you back, what's stopping you from making 100 phone calls a day? Somebody's going to answer the phone. Somebody's going to have a conversation with you if you make enough calls. What's stopping you from sending a bunch of cold emails? Again, not everybody's going to respond to your email. Some people are going to mark you as spam. Somebody might write you back and say, stop emailing me. We get emails like that. All right. Over here, Work on Your Game, we send cold emails out every day. And at least, I wouldn't say I would say if we send enough emails in a day, we get a couple responses from people that says, stop emailing us. I get that. Oh, we get that all the time. My assistant gets emails that says, don't email us anymore. That's fine. We don't email them anymore. I don't mind. But we're willing to sell ourselves. If they're not calling me, I'm calling you. That's how it works. I just told you how I got on in business as an entrepreneur. My first thing was doing professional speaking. Nobody was calling me. Nobody said, Dre, we want you to come speak. We heard you play basketball. We heard you on YouTube. We want you to come give a speech. Nobody said that. I called them. I sent emails to them. I went and applied for, if someone had an event and they said, we got a call for speakers, fill out the information. I filled out the information. That's how I got on. And then once I proved myself a few times, now some people started calling me. And these days, people call us. But at the same time, I still make outbound calls. So I'm still not just sitting around waiting for the phone to ring, because I'm doing a live right now. My phone is right here in front of me. This phone has not rang the entire time I've been talking to y'all. I've been talking to y'all for about an hour. This phone hasn't rung. We still ring phones. We still light up email inboxes. We still light up text messages. We still do outreach to get seen, heard, and known. So the selling yourself commandment does not go away just because you're known. So who's somebody who's really well known? Let's say somebody like Tony Robbins. All right. Everybody knows who Tony Robbins is, right? Whether you're a fan or not, you know who he is. All right. Tony Robbins, when I'm scrolling through social media, I still see Tony Robbins running ads. Now, Tony Robbins, everybody knows him. He's pretty famous. He still does outreach to make sure that they continue to get customers. Amazon runs ads. Apple. How many of y'all got the Apple phone or the Apple headphones or the Apple tablet or the Apple computer, Apple everything, Apple Watch? You know that Apple has a billboard right outside my building right here. That billboard costs at least $10,000 a month for the billboard space. Now, why is Apple, as much money as they make, as many customers as they have, why are they still running ads? Why are they still paying for billboards? Because they understand the concept that you have to keep selling yourself even when everybody knows you. Everybody knows who Apple is. Anybody here unclear who Apple is, the company that sells the phones? Everybody knows who they are. Why are they still running ads? Even though everybody knows them, they're still running ads anyway. Why? Because just because you bought from them last year doesn't mean you're going to buy from them next year. They understand this, and that's why they keep running ads. That's the sell yourself commandment. You can never take your foot off the gas of getting yourself known and making sure that people remember you. Because again, just because they bought your last book doesn't mean they're going to buy the next book. Just they bought your last course doesn't mean they're going to buy the next course. Let me ask all of you a question. As consumers, how many of you have bought a similar type of product from multiple different companies or multiple different people? Of course you have. How many of you ever signed up for a course on some subject from one person, and then you bought another course about the same subject from a different person? Exactly. So just because you bought from somebody before does not mean you're going to buy from them again. You might completely forget that they exist if they stop marketing to you. I get people all the time when I'm doing these lives. I'll get young men, or not young, but they're grown men now, but they'll reach out and they'll leave comments and they'll say, yo, I used to watch you when you made basketball content back in the day. And I'll ask them, how long ago was that? And they'll say, well, it was like 10, 12, 13 years ago. And they hadn't seen me since because I stopped talking about basketball. Therefore, guess what? They stopped paying attention because that's what they came to me for, was basketball. Now I'm talking about a different subject. So they weren't paying me any mind. So I can't just assume that just because you knew me in 2012 that you still know me now, because you might have went that direction. I went this direction. So you can't just assume that people know you just because they knew you doesn't mean they know you. Everybody understand? How many of you ever seen somebody that you went to school with like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, and you see them and you recognize them? Maybe they recognize you, but y'all ain't seen each other in all that time since the last time you ran into them. Why is this? Because they went that path, you went this path. So you cannot assume that people still know you just because they used to know you. So whenever I tell you stories of things that I've done, almost everything that I created personally, just speaking for myself, has been through outreach. how I got on in playing basketball from high school to college to playing professionally. I did the outreach. They were not calling me. I was calling them. It would have been great if they were calling me, but they weren't calling me. I called them. When I wanted to get on, putting myself out on the internet, I started putting content online in 2005. Nobody said, Dre, put content on the internet. I saw the internet. I said, I'm going to put some content on here. I decided to do that. And then people started seeing me. People started reaching out, and I started doing things. When I decided to start making my own products, that was a decision that I made myself to make products and start selling. My first product I ever made and sold was $4.99. We sell higher priced products now, but we started at $4.99. When I saw that you could put books out without going through a traditional publisher, I've done both. I've written books with a traditional publisher. I've also written books through our own company, but I did that. Nobody said, Dre, write a book. I decided to write a book, and I put the book out. When I wanted to get into speaking, I just told y'all this story twice already. Nobody was calling me to give speeches. I start calling them until somebody said, yes, come give a speech and we'll see how you do. They didn't say that part, but I proved myself. And now sometimes I get incoming calls. All right. So, and I still do outreach. So what am I doing right now? I'm doing this live stream right now to get my name out and get my message out to those of you who might otherwise not be paying attention to me. Even though I'm known, I have an audience. I got all added up. It's a couple 100,000 followers in all platforms put together, email lists, everything. But I'm still doing outreach. Why? Because there are people out there who wouldn't know me if I only talk to people who already know me. Everybody follow what I'm saying here? Let's move on to point number 12. We got 2 more left. We're talking to 12 work on your game commandments. Is actually 13. All right. And these are the principles of work on your game. Number 12 is the right vehicle commandment. This is an important one to go with everything that I've said so far. To sum all of this up. The right vehicle means even if you have the right idea, the right mindset, the right intentions, the right goals, and the right skills, you got to be in the right vehicle. Meaning what I do to create success for me is not necessarily the same thing you should be doing to create success for you, because we're not the same person. I told you that I'm 6 feet 4 inches tall. My parents are not even 6 feet tall. So had I been the same height as my parents, maybe I would have become, quote unquote, successful anyway, but I might have used a different vehicle than playing sports, because I probably wouldn't have been a basketball player if I was 5'8" like my dad is, right? But because I became 6'4", I took that route, and someone who's 5'8" might have taken a completely different route. So you got to be in the right vehicle. Before I started playing basketball, I played a little bit of football, played a little bit of baseball. Wasn't really that good at either one. And when I got into the right vehicle of basketball, then I knew I was in the right place. And that's when things started to work in the way that I wanted them to work for me. So you got to find that vehicle that works the best for you. I'll give you another example. When I got into entrepreneurship in 2015, I stopped playing ball, got into entrepreneurship. First thing I wanted to do is be a professional speaker. So I did speaking. I did a bunch of TED Talks. I did paid speaking gigs, or I did a bunch of free gigs, then started doing paid gigs. And then when I started looking at the business, I said, I don't want to build my whole business around this, because it's based on, I got to get somebody to approve of me in order for me to get on the stage. I didn't like that. I didn't like that every speaking gig meant somebody had to look at me, say, all right, we want him amongst all these choices. And every time I got chosen, then I could do more business. But if I didn't get chosen, I couldn't do business. I didn't like that. I didn't like that vehicle. I'm not saying it's wrong to do that. I know people who do it full time and they do very well. I didn't like that vehicle for myself. I said, this can be a part of what I do, but this can't be all of what I do. So I stopped really pursuing speaking as much as I was. And I focused more on the in-house stuff, like what we have now, which is Work on Your Game University. And I'd rather have people coming into my world rather than me trying to go into their worlds, such as with the speaking gigs. I don't mean individuals like you all. I'd rather have individuals coming into my world where we run things, rather than me trying to get into somebody else's world, like getting booked on the stage. Again, I don't mind getting booked on the stage. I'll take the check and I will go on stage. But I didn't want my whole business based around that. I didn't like that vehicle. So you got to decide which vehicle makes the most sense for you. And again, there's different vehicles for everybody. There are people out there who sell cars, and that's the great vehicle for them. There are people who do speak, and that's a great vehicle for them. There are therapists out there. That's their thing. There are athletes out there. That's their thing. There are people who have coaching programs and professional development programs like what I have. That's our thing. There are people who write books all day, every day. I saw this. I was on social media the other day, and I saw this Black woman. She said on her post on IG, not IG, on X, also known as Twitter, said she wrote 100 books. She said she got like 105 books, and they're all like fiction books. So people who write fiction, they just churn those things out. I only met, up to this point, maybe 1 or 2 people who wrote more books than me. Actually, no, more than that, like 5. Who wrote more books than me. I never seen anybody who had 100 plus books. I saw somebody who had like 85. I met this old white guy several years ago. He had like 72. And I saw this other person who had like 40. She says she had 100 books. So obviously that's her thing. And if she has the right process, that's the right vehicle for her. So you got to figure out the right vehicle for you based on your skills, based on your inclinations, based on what you like, based on what you're good at, and get in the right vehicle. And also another thing about vehicles, folks, many of you are probably not driving the same car now that you were driving 10 years ago. Sometimes vehicles change. All right? My vehicle from 2005 up through 2015 was a lot of basketball. Then I jumped in the vehicle of talking about mindset. Then I jumped in the vehicle of entrepreneurship and the vehicle of business. That's the vehicle that I'm in now. And who knows, 5-10 years from now, I might be in a different vehicle. So you got to make sure you're in the right vehicle based on your skills, your situation, the marketplace that you're in, and what makes the most sense for you. So you have to know what that is, and do not be fooled into thinking. This still happens these days, actually happens more these days. Don't be fooled into thinking you need to jump in a certain vehicle just because somebody else is in it and they're doing well. I know a lot of people who do well in their vehicles, and I can look at it, I can appreciate it, I can congratulate them on what they're doing, but it does not make me think, oh, I need to go do what that person does because it doesn't make sense for me. There are people I know who they do speaking, they have coaching programs, etc., similar to me, but they serve a different audience than who I serve. So the people that they serve and the people that I serve are not the same. So I can't copy everything they do, and they shouldn't copy everything that I do because we're not talking to the same person. So what works for them works for their people, and what works for me works for my people. So you got to be in the right vehicle and make sure you're not jumping around to doing different things just because it looks like a bright, shiny object from the outside looking in because somebody else is doing it. So you got to be in the right place at the right time doing the right thing. That's what the right vehicle means. And number 13, this is the last one. We're talking the work on your game commandments. The 12 commandments, actually 13 of them. Work on your game. Number 13 is game, G-A-M-E. This is the last and most important commandment of all. Game. What does it mean? Game means whatever vehicle you decide to be in, whatever you're going to do the same things the same way every time, whatever you're going to get an accurate formula about, however you're going to show up, you got to actually be good. You got to actually be good at what you do. Game means you got to have some game. If you're going to play a sport, you got to have some game in that sport. If you're going to write books, you got to actually know what you're talking about and write something useful. If you're going to be a coach, you got to be able to help people. All right, whatever it is you want to do, you got to actually have some game at doing the thing that you do. So you can't be a bum at what you do and then try to be a professional at it. That's not going to work. Professional is someone who does something as their main paid occupation. If you're going to get paid to do a thing, you got to actually be good at it. All right, being good matters. Yes, care about it. Yes, you can have passion and energy if you want to. Yes, you want to find the right marketplace opportunity, and summing all that up, you got to actually be good. If you are not good at what you do, you will be out of there. Again, folks, let me remind you where I come from. I come from the sports world. In the sports world, if you couldn't play, you would not be on the team. And if you were on the team and you weren't that good relative to your teammates, you would not get in the game. Y'all watch sports, right? Y'all watch the game and you see how there's a bunch of players standing on the sideline and never get in the game. All right, they ain't as good as the guys who get in the game. All right, that's the reason why they're not playing. So if you want to play, you got to have game. And if you're sitting on the bench or sitting in the bleachers, then that might be saying something about your game. Maybe you're in the wrong vehicle. Maybe you're on the wrong team. But you got to ask yourself the right questions here. So you got to have game out here. And the reason why all this is called work on your game, because you got to understand the game that you're in. This is know what business you're in. A lot of people don't know what business they're in. Then you got to develop the skills to actually perform in that game. Then you got to go out, create an opportunity. Then you got to play, and then you produce results. You produce results, you get rewards. You must have game. Okay. So with all that said, let me recap these 13 points. You got a question or a comment, put it in the comment section, and I'll address it in a minute. We are talking about the 12 work on your game commandments. These are the 12, actually 13 principles that work on your game is based on. Number one, I'm going to go through these real quick. You got a question or comment, put it in the comment section. Number one, complete ownership. Take ownership of your situation and circumstance. Number two, accurate formulas. Don't try to be right, be accurate. Number three, self-honesty. Be honest with yourself about where you're at, where you're going. Number four, the same things the same way every time. This is about process and consistency. Number five, action bias over contemplation. Actually go do something. Number six, being overdoing. Don't focus so much on what I need to do, but who I need to be. Number seven, the open market commandment. You're only as good as what you can command and get in the open market, not what you think you are worth, but what you actually can get. Number eight, the preparation commandment. Professional is always prepared ahead of time for a situation. And our TikTok told me that my live is going to end in, oh no, They gave me a caption. Okay, so capture. All right, so now we're still going. D Fears is going on what number was that? Number 8, preparation commandment. Number 9, third day commandment. How do you show up when you don't even feel like showing up? Number 10, mental toughness commandment. Can you keep going even when things seem to not be working? Number 11, the sell yourself commandment. Do not sit back and rest on your laurels even when things are going good. You must continue to do outreach and make sure that the market remembers that you exist. Number 12, the right vehicle commandment. No matter how good you are, you have to make sure you're in the right vehicle that works with your skill set and with who you are as a person. Number 13, the game commandment. You got to actually be good at what you do. You have to actually have game. Whatever you're going to do, you got to have some game. You have no game, then that may be a reason why you're getting the results that you're getting or not getting the results that you're not getting. All that said, you got a question or comment, put it in the comment section, and I'll address these in a second. So if you got something, go ahead and put it in the comment section, and I'll address it. I didn't see too many comments come through on TikTok. Maybe it was just so clean today that nobody had anything to say. But we are talking to 12, work on your game, commandments. Yellow Man Reed, I appreciate the likes that you put through in here. And also, Sugar, I appreciate the likes you put through while I was talking. By the way, while I'm going through this, workonyourgameuniversity.com. You want to work with me directly? Have me as your direct coach, get access to all of our courses, all of our best training. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com is the link in my bio or in the comment wherever you are watching this. Again, that's workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where our focus is. All right, that's the vehicle that we're driving right now is Work on Your Game University. Let's see. If you got a question or comment on IG, go ahead and put it in there. Somebody said you love the sound of your voice. I'm doing a live stream. What do you expect? Someone asked, do I do motivation text messages? We paused it, but it will come back. So you can send a text, but when it comes back, you'll get it for the motivation text message. I don't think I saw any comments on IG besides what I already responded to. Having access to the plug and not reaching out. Well, I don't know what you mean by the plug, but sometimes you got to reach out, period, even if you don't know who it is. Adriana, appreciate you. Thank you. Let's see. D Fears, appreciate it. All right, everybody. So that's it. We went over an hour here today. So we're going to wrap this one up. Again, you want to see the replay of this. It'll be up on these feeds for a short period. Then it'll be in the back end of Work on Your Game University again. So that's the link in my bio where most of you are watching this, workonyourgameuniversity.com. Make sure you're tuned into the Work on Your Game Masterclass. Comes out every single day. We over 3,000 episodes giving you the game on a personal and professional level. Everybody have a great day. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Work on your game. Be out of here.